Mm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Welcome to Unbecoming Karen.
Hmm. We find ourselves together on January 20th, day honoring the life of Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and also a day that our newest president is getting inaugurated, Mr.
Yeah.
Donald.
Boy, what an outside influence that person has had on things,
Hmm.
huh? Jeez.
Hmm.
And I also think for me, like the piece that comes in, I think about Jimmy Carter as well. Like, are the flags still at half staff? Did they remain that way? Because I know that was an issue. That was a thing, right? That they were going to be at flying at half staff during the inauguration.
Hmm.
And
A
I
good
just
question.
think about, I don't know if that held true or not. But and I just feel his energy in this whole thing too, like the kindness, the
Hmm.
gentleness of that male energy that he was, and how his life became about habitat for humanity, so that his influence
Hmm.
is also, I have goosebumps right now through my whole body, bringing me to tears, that his influence was on this day. When I think about the masculine, when we talk about divine masculine energy, right, and patriarchy, um,
Ooh.
oh, even the unbecoming Karen conversation, right, of white supremacists, it's white supremacist, patriarchal, all of that programming stuff, right, that has been really running the show for a long time here. And it feels like it's just all converging on this day, you know.
It's also like the irony of like that we also switch into Aquarius season like today as well is also
Mhm.
here and alive too, right? Where like, and I'm getting chills where even just naming this is helping me to remember and trust more in like divine timing. Everything happens in perfect sequence at the perfect time, right? And at least for me, I feel like I've been being called into greater and greater levels of just like trusting in this like divine plan, right? And not um falling into like old patterns of thinking that like God got it wrong or something like that. Or like, like, oh, this must, be against, right, the plan. And it's making me think of um, another quote from Reverend King where he talks about like the path leading tilting towards justice, right? Where it's like it might be long, but it tilts towards justice, right? And how how can we just hold on to that and just like remember that yeah, even what is the whole like the dark comes before the dawn, the darkest time before the dawn, right? Where like it looks really dark and yet like can we have faith that this is going to bring us closer to where we want to be?
Yeah.
And how do we become agents of that,
Oof.
right?
Mm.
And what if we can step into it and hold it for ourselves and others without the complete collapse of society? Or is that what it takes? And then we also are in trust and holding that space as we all navigate through it. But what it feels to me is like so many of the old systems are breaking down. We are seeing them being dismantled. We are seeing them get to a breaking point where they are pushing and pushing and pushing, and they become unsustainable for the people who are on the planet now. Um, and so it takes us being willing to get out of our comfort zones before things get so uncomfortable and untenable. It takes us getting out of our comfort zones for the people for whom it has already been uncomfortable and untenable for centuries,
Mm.
and starting to speak up and do something that is
Mm-hmm.
actually, and it starts within. It can start right here, right now, in this moment. It can be in this quiet acceptance and understanding of things are different now. I am different now. I'm choosing a different future for myself and every being I get to impact during my one precious life here, in this life here. because we probably have many. Um, but letting that spark take place and letting us have the courage to move forward and step outside of our comfort zones again and again and again on behalf of each other, not just because our own situation is has to get so bad that we're willing to change.
Beautiful.
And I feel so much there for like, for so many of us, that question of like, what is it going to take, right? Like, what is it going to take for us to do this different? What is it going to take for us to admit that we don't like how it's been happening, right? Like to admit that it can be different, that it's, like feels like we're at that moment in history where like all of us are feeling the pressure and really being asked, like, what is it going to take, right? To get up and change something, to say no more, to say, because in the grand scheme of things, like this pattern has been happening for a while, right? Like, Trump is a great example of, just like a system that has been working for a long time in a particular way has resulted in him being elected to the highest office in America, right? So like, this isn't just like, oh, it happened. It's like, no, this is like evidence that this is how this stuff has been working on us, working in us, working through us, like pretty much since America began America-ing. And so, to me, it's an invitation of like, okay, I'm not happy with this outcome, so let's do something different now, right? Like, it really, to me, is a call to like change, to do and be different than we were before. So many people are kind of like in this rhetoric of like, the end, the end, the end. And, you guys know I've been reading that Wheel of Time book, and every single Wheel of Time book starts with like a similar phrase that's like along these lines, right? Like, it's not the ending. There are no endings in the Wheel of Time, but it is an ending, right? And so there's this like reminder, right? And like, I just got chills, right? Where it's like just that subtle difference, like allows us to remember that like we get endings every day the sun goes down. Every month we get a new moon. Every year, like we get winter. So like we get to be reborn here. It's not just like, well, we're falling off the cliff and that's it. Bye.
I love that this is where this conversation is going, because it's so true. And it's like it depends on a couple of things. One is like, yes, the old systems are crumbling. Like I know we've talked about that in Kairos quite a bit, right? And old systems are crumbling. And it's whether you lament that because you're afraid of losing something that those systems provided for you. So were you someone who was benefiting from the systems? As white people, a lot of it, like so are we willing, am I willing, I'm going to bring it back. Am I willing to give up and let go of things that maybe served me in some way, but at the cost of somebody else, and all of our major systems have served some of us, but not all of us, right? Like, so we can choose to lament and fear for what is ending. Like, oh my God, the financial systems are crumbling, the education, healthcare. Or we can like let die what needs to die because they're not working, right? And create the new things and feel, I mean, I'm going to use this phrase very carefully, but I was going to say, and feel joy for what is coming in. Because I also know that that could be like a white privilege thing, like, hey, I get to feel joy over this when it's going to be rocky. It's going to be, but that's the thing. That's the ultimate white privilege, right? It's been rocky for hundreds of years for people that don't look like me. Um, anyway, yeah. So I feel like I've been in a place, I think perhaps because of the healing, or maybe it's because of the focus on the wheel of time and turning of the wheel and learning to let go of what no longer serves. And instead of it being painful, it's more like, oh, yay, let that go. Like, the classic, the tree doesn't hold on to its leaves, right? Like, so yeah, it can be hard to let go of what's familiar because it's familiar. Our nervous systems want to stay with it, right? But, I think what I feel inside a lot of is this like positive expectancy for like, yes, well, the birth process is hard, right? I've never given birth to a child, so I don't know, but I could imagine that there's like it's not an easy process, and there must be times in it, I would imagine, where you're just like, I'm gonna die. This is not good. Like, you know what? But then what happens is this beautiful new life comes in, right? So I guess this is just a massive labor thing that we're going through as a collective. I don't know, maybe we're crowning, and I think, I don't know. I'm going to stop talking about the process because I don't know enough about it, but I'm sure there's a birth analogy in here that fits that I don't know.
I will say too, something that keeps coming through as you're talking is the narrative that we have around all of it. Because my awakening 12 years ago was giving birth with virtually no pain.
Mm.
It was a lot of effort. It was a lot of effort. But I came into that pregnancy, went 8 months through it, fully believed I would have an epidural because I didn't want to deal with the pain. And I knew it was going to be like this horrific, everything I'd ever seen in Hollywood, from Hollywood, heard from other people. So why deal with that pain if you don't have to? May as well just numb out and then come out on the other side. And then I was handed a book, a couple books, that told the history of birthing and how women's power was stripped from them in order to give it to the men. And it became this part of modern medicine and patriarchal society and a mode of controlling women. And then it became this whole narrative that we all like laugh about in Hollywood movies. But um, and then I was, for the first time in my life, fully empowered to lean into my own body and my own body's wisdom and this child that was coming through and her soul and her spirit and our pathways together. And it shook my reality to the core because she came in with virtually no pain. There was that minute at the end where I was like, oh God, I'm gonna die. They call that the ring of fire for a reason. But other than that, all the medical staff, my parents, my husband, everybody was just like, holy shit, what just happened? Because it was so contrary to everything that we knew is supposed to be. And so, what if, as we are all spiraling up together, we can create this new narrative where we are opening our hearts and walking through this so much more courageously and tuned in to what is actually happening. And again, I love that the conversation has gone this way because it is so powerful right now, where it looks like we are headed for that cliff. But what if we're actually not? What if this is, what if we are like headed towards the cliff, but we're growing our wings? You know?
Yeah. What if this is the ring of fire, right?
Ooh, goosebumps.
Yeah.
Oof. You know what I feel like really stands out too with what you said, Clarissa, is like you went from not wanting to have to deal with the pain, right? To like being willing to deal with the pain, but then having practically a pain-free experience, right? And I feel like that is where a lot of us are at, right? Is like, are we willing to sit in the pain of the reality of our world, of how we got here, of what it must have taken to get here, right? Because most of us, maybe I won't say it like that. I feel like our society trains us to avoid the pain, right? Numb it out, get rid of it. We don't need it, right? Or I guess there's the whole like no pain, no gain, and then we start getting off on the pain, and that's not necessarily as helpful. But like it feels like this opportunity for us to recreate our relationship with pain, and suffering or hardship or discomfort, right? If we're talking about like particularly for white people, right? Like feeling discomfort is so not an allowed thing within white culture, within white supremacy, right? Like comfort above all. If that means that I need to lie about who I am, if that means I need to suppress everything about myself, like comfort above all. And so, I mean, we're really flipping that on its head when we're saying, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm inviting you into discomfort, right? Like that's like it's a revolutionary thing for white folks. And the other one too that you said, Babs, was about joy, because I feel like it's an interesting dynamic because I honestly witness like white folks denying themselves joy a lot, or like having experiences that should bring about joy, but no one feels joyful, right? Versus, right, like my experience within communities of color, right? Joy is a resistance tool, right? It's how you survive oppression, right? Fostering joy, fostering creativity, like that's how like folks of color have been surviving under these, or like one of the tools that has been utilized to keep our spirit alive despite fucking, you know, oppression. And so it feels like this invitation of like a yes and, right? Where it's like, are we feeling joy for all of the privileges that we do have? You know, like, and not in a like, you know, snooty way, but in a like, can we just be grateful for what we have? Or am I sitting here feeling guilty for what I've been given? Because that's not helpful, you know? So I do feel like there's this call back to joy, right? Because that is how we fight against fear and domination, and a story that tells us that like we've lost all hope.
Yeah.
Mm.
So good.
Mm.
And that's the programming. I just love this conversation. And Clarissa, I mean, it's so funny that I start using birth analogies and then you get to share that story. Like, and this is the thing, right? It's like collectively, what stories are we telling? And the joy piece, like, and I often think too about the piece of focusing on what you're for, not what you're against, right? There's so much what we're against, energy, fighting against what we're against, fighting against each other, instead of proclaiming what we're for, and we want that for everyone. Like, you know, so for joy, like, may I claim my joy and um, do whatever I can to make sure that everybody also can access their joy. You know what I mean? Like, um, wanting joy for all, and any place that that's not able to happen, may I somehow, you know, help to unlock that or something. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, some interesting other things are dropping in from that story that feels so relevant right now. One is that when I decided to go down the path of trying a medically unassisted labor, um, I hired a doula, which I didn't know what that was at the time, but it, I believe, literally translates to mother to the mother. So it's like this person to be there to tend to the mother's needs who is busy doing other things, right? Who can advocate for them, who can make sure they have every support tool they could have to ease the labor. And she asked me, what do you want your birth to be like? And I said, I want it to be peaceful and full of joy. And wouldn't you know, I get to the hospital and the midwife walks in, whom I've never met before. Her name is Joy. She was also like 8 months pregnant and just did this like beautiful job of shepherding me through this experience, having been the one who has experienced thousands of childbirths. I mean, midwives there. And then I had the knowledge of these books that I read, which included so many testimonials and stories of other women who had done this before. And so how how much more ease filled and safe or courageous we can become when we are walking together, when we are following the footsteps of people who have carved a little bit of the pathway before and survived, and who can point out the reason why we feel so disconnected from our power, who can point out what has happened to our nervous systems again and again and again to have us self contain rather than fully expanding into our joy and our power. And so I feel like we are doing that here by coming and having these conversations. And I'm so present to all of the women, particularly who have had these conversations before us, who have held this door open for us to get the little trickles of knowledge and history, her story, and empowerment that gives us the courage to be able to rise up in mass and change things today.
Mm. Mm. I love that. And, you know, even just like you sharing that story, right, of like choosing an alternative to medicalized birth 12 years ago, right? Like it speaks to how we're already actually creating the new health systems that we want. You know what I mean? Like we're doing it now. Like, and so it, again, like I feel that hope. Like it's not, like it's no coincidence that like so many parents are like starting to do alternatives to like mainstream like education, right? It's like they're opening the doors. They're anchoring in new ways of doing this. They're like showing us that there are other options out there, you know? And so for a lot of us, like you just said, right? Like we have to believe that it's possible to have a different experience often to let ourselves have it, you know? Like if we're really, really believing like this is the only way and the only way is dying, yeah, like that's scary. But like, it's not the only way. It's barely been the way for like at all, you know, considering like how long humans have been around, right? Like I'm thinking of like, okay, the Biblioteca temple, if I'm pronouncing it correct, in Turkey, right? It's like carbon dated to be from like 12,000 BC, 13,000 BC, right? And that's just carbon dated. That doesn't mean when it was actually built, you know? That's like 15,000 years ago. Like human time is so much bigger than like America. Like even like, you know, like even like Britain, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, there's a lot more available for us than we've been led to believe.
Yeah. And I was just, what came in for me when you were speaking, Kristen, was like I think that we all know that, whether we, and I think that our outrage comes from places where that knowing gets thwarted or something. And I think that that holds true on both sides. If I'm, you know, if we're thinking how divided everything is, right? That like the outrage, maybe that's an indicator, like that's our soul, like that's our deepest knowing that's going like, wait a minute, this is not okay. And on the other side, there, this is not okay, looks like one thing.
Mm.
And on the other side, it looks like very different. So that it's, you know, easy to point the finger. That's the thing when you were talking about pain too earlier, Kristen, like, and not avoiding the pain. Like the thing that makes pain last is when you resist it, right? And I mean, in my deepest healing, and when I was, you know, doing really deep personal healing of really intense sexual trauma as a kid, right? Like the thing that would feel so impossible to look at, when you finally were able to have the environment where you could actually look at it, it actually moved through pretty quickly and wasn't as, yeah, it's horrific, but not as horrific as your imaginings might say, you know? So it's actually going into it is a lot less painful than not going into it, you know? So it's like the resistance to it that is the most painful thing, right? So that's where I love the willingness. Open
Well,
to
and
willing. Yeah.
it's so funny because like the resistance piece, right? Like when I think of I know people talk about healing journeys and like invitations to, you know, right, like spirit keeps saying, quit the job, quit the job, quit the job, right? And you're like, I can't quit the job. I can't. What do you mean quit the job, right? Until finally one day, like there's massive layoffs and you get laid off, right? And so it's like, and then at that point, it's like, oh, scary, right? And not saying like that's how things happen and like that's why that happened, but it is an interesting thing to think about with like when we resist, it makes it like it compounds it, right? And so like in this moment in time, right? Like how is this moment a result of our collective resistance to the call, right? Like, you know, because it's not like we've not been talking about racism and white supremacy in the United States for like, you know, when was the Civil War? Like the 1860s, 60s, you know what I mean? So it's like, this has been a continuous thing that like has just not gotten resolved. Like, and the divide between like, you know, wage, like aristocracy and the working class, and, you know, all of these different like divisions. It's not new, right? It's just coming to like the pressure has been built, and now we're seeing the volcano explode.
Yeah. And it feels like a bit of a backlash moment. Remember that book back in the 80s? I think it was Susan Faluti's book, Backlash. Never read it actually, but I think just the title kind of says it all, right? So I think that there've been, when there's strides, it's like maybe, you know, the arc of history, yeah, bends towards justice, but it also was kind of waves all over the place, right? Snaps back and moves forward and snaps back and moves forward. And,
yeah, like contractions, or like, you know, like the way, you know, it feels like that's like the nature of life, right? Is like, is the like,
yeah.
You know, and it's our denial that we just want, like, it's like, no, it has to be like this, when it's like, this is bad. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
Okay. That's a hard way to live. Yeah. Okay, so I want to be mindful of time. Is there anything else that's like wants to be said?
Well, what I'm feeling is for us to do a group, like a co-led healing activation for, I mean, I just think this conversation we've had about birth and how what we've been programmed to believe is that birth is like screaming and painful and horrible and a medical emergency. And I mean, all the depictions I've ever seen of it is the woman screaming and writhing in agony. And yeah. And then the experience that you shared, Clarissa, which is what's possible when we trust ourselves, right? Like when we're in trust instead of in resistance. So I would love to see what comes, if there's something that comes alive about that theme, because as we walk through this time, imagine if we could collectively find our way to a place of trust of it all, and trust of each other and trust of ourselves, instead of this battling and warring and finger pointing. And so that's what I'm feeling.
I love that. Yeah.
Holding that door open for others.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's go there and see what comes through. I'll start just because I'm talking and then we'll just see where it goes. So yeah, so I invite you to close your eyes if that feels aligned. And if not, just keeping your eyes open, but softening your gaze and allowing your intention and your energy, if you will, your focus to slow down and go inward as we together in this time right now allow ourselves to find the frequency of a different time, a different way of living. We tend to live in a world that's very sped up. So let's now together allow ourselves with our breath, allowing your breath to deepen and slow down a bit if it can, while you also honor your own self and space. Just inviting in and intending to allow us to collectively align with a different way of being. The picture that Clarissa painted for us earlier, where instead of choosing the known path of pain and struggle and hard and fear and divisiveness, as we bring this into the more political social sphere here, the way that we've been guided, if you will, to point the finger very quickly. It's somebody else's fault. It's somebody else's job to fix it. It's somebody else's. What if we just take a moment here to slow down And allow yourself to land in your own body here. Just for this moment, knowing that your body is part of all of who you are, which includes your higher self, the bigger, broader part of who you really are. You are so much more, so much bigger than the doom scrolling on social media and the news stories that get you riled up and the fears that you may have about what's going on and allowing yourself now to invite in that bigger, broader part of who you are and who we are collectively. And just as we've been talking about the wheel of time, the turning of the wheel, how cycles, we are cyclical beings. The inhale, the exhale. Sunrise, the sunset, the moon phases, the ocean waves that continually come in and recede, the seasons. We are cyclical beings, which means we can trust the endings and the beginnings. So now together we breathe in this space of trust of the endings and the beginnings. And we decide in this moment together to not allow our attention to be pulled out of this space, to get caught up in the drama, to get caught up in the finger pointing or the divisiveness. We stay, we choose to stay. And when we forget, we find our way back. We now proclaim this for ourselves. And so it is.
Mm-hmm. As you breathe here, coming into contact, coming into connection with that phenomenal force that is you, that phenomenal force that is housed within this physical form. And just giving yourself permission, if it feels right, to wiggle, to let yourself acclimate to the density as you come in contact with this phenomenal force that is you. Just really breathing into that, feeling your energy maybe extend and expand beyond your body. Feeling that you are both this form and so much more. Feeling the timelessness of you, the infiniteness of you. Feeling how your physical body is connected to a replication of all of those who came before you, so that you are an embodiment of all the humans in your line, going all the way back, pre-patriarchy, pre-colonialism, to the indigenous ancestors. You're connected all the way back, all the way forward. Just acclimating to that, claiming that, knowing that you are so much more than what you've been told, than the stories that you've been fed, to the identities that you've donned this lifetime. That you get to be both form and formless, really breathing into the both and here. You're not either or, you're both and so much more. And just really claiming that for yourself. Allowing the lies that you have adopted, that you have been seeped in, to just start disentangling from you. All the untruths get to just disintegrate and fall away effortlessly, easily, as you come into remembrance of all that you are. A timeless being incarnate in this now moment.
Breathing that in, letting it infiltrate every molecule of your being. What's coming through over here is a story and a song. It's a short story, but it's me as a child in the Martin Luther King Jr. parades. Every year here in Denver, we call them the Marades, is what they're called, and marching with people of all color and singing at the top of our voices, walking together courageously through the cold for, I don't know, a mile or so. It felt like a really long way when I was a kid, but I remember being so proud and honored to be a part of that event. And then flashing forward in my life when I just got busy and complacent and disconnected and told myself the story that somebody else would do it. There are other people who are doing it this year, and I have other things to do. And the inner guilt that was always gnawing at me, that was pulling me back. And, they have the warnings of small children shouldn't be out in 5-degree temperatures, which I think is what it was today. And so it's a really easy excuse to not attend. And if there's some physical reason why we can't partake in something our heart is calling us to, tuning into a deeper, what are the other options? What else can I do? Can I hand my kids off to somebody else for a couple hours? Or can I sit in reverence and celebration? And I've been feeling called to sing the song that we sang, and also my ego self is yelling at me, is that appropriation? And I feel so called to do it that I'm going to do it anyway and follow that tug. But just, this is in profound honorance of all who have walked this path before us when it felt terrifying and life-threatening, all who have paved the way, held open the door, found ways to make a way where there was no way, and show others the path and illuminate it for others. So with that, I bring this through. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. With profound gratitude for all who have led the way, all who are walking beside us, all who are blazing the trails, looking in that mirror and seeing ourselves as those willing to take the courageous path. May we stand side by side with one another, looking in each other's eyes for strength and resolve, retelling the narrative and letting it not be so hard as we are led to believe. Letting the stories fall away of the pain and the reasons we should be afraid. Letting settle into our nervous systems the truth of who we are and why we are here at this time, and how we are here with millions of others who are ready to rise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Kristen, I keep hearing the song you shared with us before we started recording, and I keep hearing just, I am open, I am willing. Can't remember, I am healing, I am feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As a mantra to end with here, like, I am open, I am willing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am ready. I am feeling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So invite anyone listening to just bring yourself back, bring some movement into your bodies, maybe touch your face, touch your body, look around your space. Remember where you are located here and now. Deep gratitude for moving through that with us, for being on this journey with us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
May it be so.
May it be so.
So it is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Mm-hmm.